Okay, welcome everybody. Tanya's not with us today. She's got a conflict, some meeting or something. And we got the rest of our crowd here. Would you like to open with a discussion first and look at the homework questions for stimulation like we've been doing?
Yes.
Okay. Let me put them on the screen. If I can find them here. Let's see. I gotta get a glimpse into some of my stuff here. Let me see. Get it here. I think it's here. Oh, where is that file? Wait a minute, folks, bear with me here. I've got to find this.
Yeah, well, glad to see it's happening to you as well. I always feel very, very alone with this.
Yeah,
I have to work hard to get to a green line, with this when I start looking for a file.
yeah, where did I put this? It should be here. Guys, chat for a minute while I poke around here.
Sure.
The word's not letting me
Yeah,
bring it up.
I just want to share with you that there's like some problems like the last couple of days and emails not coming through. I think the last email I got was on Wednesday, so if you've sent something afterwards, I will be behind. But
Oh,
yeah, with
I
some
sent
email
it,
problems, yeah.
I sent it about then.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have it, but
It's not it there.
It's called Online 40 course.
Yeah, it is. I know.
That helps, but
That's very useful. Thank you. Okay.
you're welcome.
So I'm putting these on here in inverse chronological order. So the ones on the top will be where we are now. And the big thing we're going to do today is 2 experiential exercises. So you should have filled out your gratitude worksheet by now and be ready to share that. And I think what we'll do, we'll just share it sequentially. Each person can speak, the small group. Then we're going to do the appreciation exercise, which I normally do in class personally, but I'll try and do some version of that online here. So to review material, let's look at this. Number 1, about appreciating bosses. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I can speak about that. So we got a new CEO and almost 2 years ago. And the CEO, in our organization, we hold something which is called skip level meeting. So I don't know if you're familiar with that. So CEO talks to all the reports of his reports. So I was in that meeting, and then CEO was saying, does anybody have any question? And then I asked, and there's silence, right? So people are quite apprehensive to talk to the CEO. And I found that out, that actually people have thoughts, but if I raise my voice, right? So then I asked a very simple question. I said, so, sir, can you tell us how are you actually feeling now you've been in the role for 2-3 months? Oh boy. So the CEO stumbled for a moment and then found his groove and then answered the question. And then there comes another part. The CEO actually sends me an email and thanks me for that question, because he said, well, this is the first time that somebody actually asked me, how am I? Because everyone else, like, when you think about it, there is a new CEO. So now everyone is trying to position themselves, right? Like everyone is thinking about themselves, but then the CEO is on his own, he signs the worst of it, right? Like when I always, as I progress through the ranks, I'm thinking, oh, this is this game, right? Like when you're just junior manager, well, you sign simple things. As soon as something gets more complicated or the stakes are higher, it goes up, right? So I mean, we regulate entities, we are government. So our CEO's second title is a registrar, which means that the registrar can revoke a license. Well, if you're revoking a license to serve alcohol to a large establishment, guess who signs? It's a CEO, right? And it's not an easy decision, and it might be at 3 a.m, right? Luckily, we don't have a lot of those, but
Yeah,
that was my experience. That was one. But on the other hand, I know when I send something to my group of people, I send them an email about something, and then there's silence. So a couple of times I actually spoke with them and I said, well, it's especially difficult when I send an email and nobody responds.
yeah,
Before, while we were in the boardroom and I could actually see reactions, I can at least glean into what they're thinking. But how am I going to know what do they think when I send an email and there is crickets? So that's like my take from both sides.
interesting, thank you. Okay. Anybody want to talk about these other points here?
I think in general they're good reminders, and Darinka's story was even better. It's you know, kind of reminds you that sometimes it's okay to ask for what you need, and you know, certainly in my experience, bosses don't do that, right? They don't necessarily say, "How am I doing?"
Yeah,
So I think it's a nice reminder.
nice, yep. Asking, we'll talk about this, is an incredibly powerful thing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I do for years is when we have a performance appraisal discussion, I ask them, can you tell me in our relationships, what are the things that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, and what are the things that I don't do and you would need me to? And I also tell them, like, this is an optional question. I don't like, it's not
Yeah,
something, right?
yeah, nice,
One of the things, right, when you have power over someone, you have to
nice,
be graceful in exercising that power.
very good.
But
Yeah.
I found a lot of really good answers. Well, you have to listen really carefully because the answers might not be direct how I would prefer, right? But then when you listen carefully, you can actually understand what is it that they feel that I should change.
Yeah, that's what I call plus delta feedback. I love that. And listening is meeting a very deep inclusion need, the need to feel heard. That's really good. I see why you've got a big job. That's good stuff. Okay. How about modalities to appreciate the work? What do you think about these?
I'm a big fan of multiple modalities, and I think, you know, varying it to both the receiver and the situation. So I thought they were all, you know, potentially good options.
Good, that's exactly right. Good. I've worked with green consultants in this area, and they will tell you only the first one works. That's not true. They all work.
Yeah.
How about HAPS?
And
Go ahead, Nico.
yeah, I just want to share with you guys my work in South Africa, and there's a lot of appreciation built into that. But now, Darinka, this is not going up to the CEO. I've been in that world, but now it's going down to they're much younger than me. They're a different culture, black. coming from the apartheid system, in which there was a lack of self-identity. It was suppressed. It is part of the culture. So even the youth getting raised today, there's a lack of self-identity.
That's bad.
So when I, use principles like create the context for performance, it is not like telling them, oh, you're such a great person, they won't believe me. So you create the context where I do like a ritual with them, where they have to reflect about themselves, get feedback from the group, and in that, they get sometimes information that they haven't heard ever in their life about themselves. And for some reason, that is like snowballing then, because, they suddenly realize, sometimes their eyes really go bigger, the moment that they realize I'm actually an individual. So I just want to share with you the complete opposite of appreciation in the South African context.
Great, thank you. Okay. How about,
Maybe
yeah,
couple
go
couple
ahead.
words just to add to what Nico just said. It actually, there is a very strong cultural background in the relationship between employees and employers and leaders and team members. So you have to really be aware of those cultural norms and traditions and differences, because looking into the eye and shaking hand or putting flowers on somebody's table or any other signs of appreciations, it can be very appreciative in certain cultures. In other cultures, it might be some of it can be considered inappropriate. So there is a cultural aspect of it. So my sort of, that's my 2 cents, my humble opinion. Thank you.
Okay,
There is one more other thing, Charlie, that comes to mind. I was thinking of listening to everybody else's experiences, and there's something I noticed over my career that happens when the boss isn't around, and the people start talking about the boss, basically. They did this jerk, he blah blah, and I've always built relationship with my managers, whoever they were, as well. The same way I built relationship with my colleagues and the people that worked for me on my teams. And I always saw it as a kind of that's the way you work with people. You meet them on a personal basis, and it always worked for me. But the one thing I found when I find myself in those conversations is I'd start to say, well, but don't forget her strengths are these, and you're picking on the things that are her natural blind spots or weaknesses. And then I would point out, by the way, you, Joe, and you, Bill, and whatever, you guys are poor at these things. And, and they kind of acknowledge it. I say, we all have strengths and weaknesses. And when you pick on they're not good at the things you're arguing about, but look at all the good things that they've been doing and where they're really good at and what they do well. They're human beings, and I was always surprised when people would kind of get on a feeding frenzy like that sometimes. And, and I had some bad bosses, there's no doubt. And, it was sometimes hard to find a strength with one or two of them at least, but there was always something they were very good at. And I would always tell folks I worked with, I said, try work to their strengths, help them with their, if they're good at something, let's help them with that. And that could be their, the point of their sword to go after stuff that helps the whole group. So anyway, that's my experience.
Yeah, that's good. Let's go back to that Dilbert cartoon where he's saying you put the wrong date on the report. And the reason is it helps me feel better about myself. That's why they're doing that. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
And the other thing is that this idea of the groups, I mean, I think the social media have made this much, much worse.
That's true.
Interesting thing, the sideline. I did work for a group at Jet Propulsion Lab for literally maybe 15 years, SNMA group. And the leaders liked it so much, they did more and more. And so toward the end, I was doing 2 workshops a year for them. And they were going on YouTube, how wonderful this was. And without me doing anything at all, a group of Black women who have a social media thing at JPL began to rank on me. And the leader actually ended up canceling the workshops because of that.
Hmm.
After 15 years of endorsing this work. So, and it was completely perplexing to me, and someone at JPL who'd only been at one workshop said, the stuff they're saying about you is completely made up, but it's caught on. So bad-mouthing me on social media.
There does seem to be an element of that. I know what you're talking about. It seems to draw out
Yeah,
negative
yeah.
emotions and comments sometimes from usually a small group of people,
Yeah,
but they're
right.
vocal a lot of times. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and no basis in reality.
Right.
Anyway, so how about HAPS? What do you think of this? This is a good test.
I don't remember us covering that in the class.
We didn't.
Okay. But I thought it was a nice, sometimes I'm acronym, but primarily that tends to get in the way of my intuition.
Yeah, I agree about that. The reason I brought this up is Darinka talked about some of these things, about the need for authenticity and specificity.
Mhm.
So this is the standard we measure against in the online tool. So
Oh, okay.
I thought I'd introduce this idea now. Emerson, what you do speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say. How about the power of gestures?
Right. I'm a big gesture guy for whatever reason.
Good. It's action.
Yeah.
Then we talk a little bit about the scarcity mindset.
Yeah, I want to explore that space more. I think I have a problem operating in that space when I'm in tired or negative or what have you, and how to understand when you're in it and how to pull yourself out is definitely an area I want to explore more. So I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this.
Everybody
I
gets the
definitely-
key idea, right? The idea is simple.
No, I definitely also need to share with you. I don't know now or later or what the idea is, but definitely I need to get to this.
I can tell you something about it. So I'm an accountant, so it's an interesting skill, right? Sometimes when people give you like 2 or 3 nuggets of information, I actually can picture much more about their financial position than they even believe, right? Like they say, oh, I paid this much for that in taxes. Well, then I know, okay, do that. They must have income over certain amount. So we have that skill. But the thing that our association promotes heavily is for us in Canada, we actually operate as volunteers and do taxes for the underprivileged people. So I do taxes. I now have the whole group of people who live on social assistance, and I do their tax returns. And I have to tell you, it is something else when you compare how much I pay in taxes versus what is the entire year for 2 people who live in a social housing and live on social assistance, how much money they get, right? So it kind of it grounds you, and you're like, oh wow, because they come, well, they have clothes on their back, they smile, they've eaten something, they live somewhere. So it's like one of those things. Yeah, I always suggest to people, well, just try to volunteer in the soup kitchen. If nothing else, try to do something like that.
Yep. I think the biggest thing that I know here is about managing your attention. And we're going to do the gratitude exercise. And so we don't, all these things are unnatural, I think, at some level. But I think to write down what you're grateful for and bring your attention to it, I think it's a great idea to even put do it in a Word document, what you're grateful for, and put it where you can see it. I think it's a nice idea to put this by your bedside. What about if the last thing you do every day before you go to sleep is to meditate on what you're grateful for? There's a lot, folks. We live in a very special period. So that
Do
to
you want
me
me
is
to
the best thing I know.
do you want me to share some thoughts about this? The scarcity
We're
mindset,
gonna
Dale?
have you talk about what you're actually grateful for. So if that's what you want to do, wait. But if thoughts about this in general, go ahead.
I'll be very short, but it's for me necessary to share with you the context in which I'm working with. If I say the black youth in South Africa, okay, we accept and understand they are raised in a context of the survival mindset. So scarcity is another word to describe it, but I prefer the description survival mindset. So since I joined this context a couple of years ago, I slowly but surely worked myself backwards into their mindset. And the rationale behind it, for me to understand what I was doing, it was not self-destructive behavior. For me, it is really to get into immersion into the situation, to understand how does that mindset work. And therefore you have to experience firsthand. So I deliberately gave myself exposure to that. Currently, I have that challenge to set a benchmark or to open up the way to work myself out of it so that I can then obviously take others with me out. This is the bigger picture in South Africa, and
I mean,
thank you for.
I think what you're describing is empathy.
It is a way of empathy, but you know, you can be empathetic millionaire, like really caring for people, but you don't really understand what it's like not to have access to funding or resources, material stuff, etc. There's quite the difference. So what you regard as empathy coming from wealth or abundance can totally be insensitive in the context of the survival mindset. We can go into depth in that, my understanding, my research, but I mean, I've worked myself into a challenge personally as well in this regard.
Okay.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Thank you, Nico, for sharing. And very quick note on that list of appreciation gestures, like do you do one of your spouse's jobs? In my family, we are a team with my husband, and we don't have a spouse's jobs. That we basically really do whenever and whatever we can do if we have a window in our schedules. So we really not really defining it as a this is your job and this is my job. So this is basically whenever I have time, and if I see my husband is busy, I'm just doing whatever I can. So in the same way like he does. So we don't have any specific jobs assigned to any one of us. So we are a team, and that's how I understand the team, and that my definition comes from, and my experience comes from my in my youth when I was very heavily involved in mountain climbing. So when you are up there in a very high altitude without oxygen, working with your team, that's what you do. You don't have a job. You really do what needs to be done if you're able to do it.
I'm not talking about formally assigned jobs, but I'd be surprised if you didn't do different things during the day as a matter of habit. Junko and I don't spend every moment together. She's doing something separately. She normally does the lead in cooking dinner. You don't do that?
We both cook, and if my husband is busy, I'm cooking.
We both cook too, but don't isn't there a default that you would normally do it?
We both are very extremely busy at what we do. So so basically whenever some has a window in his or her schedule, that's what we're trying to squeeze in, regardless of, we just go with the flow of the day.
Okay.
I mean, it almost sounds a little bit like it's kind of the default is just the support. You know, Tanya and I certainly have habits that we've fallen into, but Listening to Larissa talk reminded me of a time that one of my old companies, we did a Habitat for Humanity. And we were all the way the CEO described, he's like, we have a group of people that really like to solve word problems. And that's really what we were. We just give me some weird, funky problem and we'll figure it out. So we show up on this job site and they're like, well, all we've got for you to do is the landscaping. And we immediately just like, we had never been in landscaping before. We didn't have assigned, jobs, but it was just like, hey, I've got the wheelbarrow in my hands. It's like, okay, great. And then just very quickly, we just kind of worked through and we got through everything they had for us in half a day. And they were like, we've never seen anybody work this way. And we were just, I think in that space, it was just highly communicative, and that was just how we were used to working. It was like, if you're standing there, go for it. And if you're, can't be standing there, someone else will jump into that space. But we were just kind of finding the loopholes or finding the missing pieces. And it sounds kind of like that's how Larissa and her husband organize their lives, which I think is an amazing skill, because that's not my default normally.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. But yeah, Charlie, I certainly understand the importance of appreciation gestures. So it's very important to really have that and remember how important it is. Yeah, whichever form.
That was the point. Okay?
Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. We clear on how to get into the abundance mindset, focus your attention on what you're grateful for.
Getting there, Charlie. I'm getting there.
So this is a little piece. Tanya and I had a wonderful little discussion after you guys were gone the other day about marriage, sharing our experiences. And anyway, I just continued. What is the most sound foundation for a marriage, given that certainly most of us have been divorced? Larissa, you've not, but I know very few people that. I think this national statistic is over half, and so.
All you guys divorced, really?
You wouldn't know anything about this, would you, Nico?
No. Yeah.
So I think
That's the same. I can talk a half an hour or the rest of the time about this one if you want me to.
I think I would tie that together a little bit, Charlie, with your previous conversation about appreciation. I think,
yeah,
at least I've noticed for myself and with my second wife, we both, as we've gotten older, I think we've learned to appreciate our differences that maybe
Yeah.
I didn't do well when I was younger and in my previous marriage, and I don't think my ex-wife did either, is that we were very different people and we didn't appreciate those differences and use that as a way to kind of strengthen each other rather than, well, why do you keep doing this? Well, that's what they are. You got to appreciate who they are. So
well, I'm actually setting up the next behavior after this, which is the shared interests, and I believe that all relationships flourish when you address shared interests. I think that is the single key, and we'll talk about that later. But what part of my madness in my methodology is to put ideas in here that I'm going to first put in make you familiar with it, and then flesh them out later.
Charlie, sorry to interrupt you. It's 11:30.
Say again?
It's 11:30. It's the exercise.
Thank you.
time.
On your feet.
Tea time.
All right, I think I finished up last week with this slide. Just look familiar? Good. About what I'm grateful for. And now I talked about this exercise, which is very potent, easy to do. Asked you to write in your workbook what you're grateful for. And now we're going to ask each of you to share with the group what you're grateful for as you wrote it. Who wants to start?
I can go.
Good.
So this was an interesting exercise, and I've kind of done this over, I guess, the course of a couple of weeks, because we had kind of thought we were going to do it earlier, and then kind of revisiting it. And it's interesting because, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, when I'm tired or stressed, I don't always move into this space. But if I've learned that if I can kind of get myself up and moving, that's why I think action is a helpful thing for me, or a helpful way to appreciate people. That's really helped me to appreciate some of the things that I think previously I thought were either weaknesses or bad luck, for lack of a better word. So work life, I always look for challenges and good people to work with. And right now I have that. So it's a wonderful place to be. It is causing some stress, but overall, I think I really feel like for the first time in a very long time, certainly in a very long time, if not ever, I'm working in a place that I can really get behind and believe in.
That's nice.
Family life, obviously, I've met a wonderful partner. We have, it's interesting. We have such diverse backgrounds, but in some ways we're very similar, and we're kind of finding our own combined path. So definitely very grateful for that. It's unfortunate she's not here to hear that, but she hears that from me all the time. And then, broader world. It's like, even though it is a scary time in many ways, I do believe that whatever reason, I believe we will find our way through. And I'm grateful for the younger generations. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. That was great.
Okay, Larissa, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm very grateful for my family. I'm very happy to have 4 grandchildren, 2 wonderful children, and I'm really grateful for my partner in life, my husband. So we're very much different, but we have a shared interest, as you say, Charlie, and despite our differences, which some might consider very big differences, but we still have a strong understanding of shared interests. So that really keeps us going through life together. I have very strong appreciation in really gratefulness for the opportunity to understand different cultures, because I love traveling, but most I love my second chance in my life to really live in work and raise my family in a different culture. So it just really gives me a very unique opportunity to really almost feels like 2 different lives. So I feel like and I'm here and I feel an American, and I am an American. So, and I'm very proud to be an American, but at the same time, I appreciate all my experiences, challenges, barriers, and things of that nature. But intimately understanding inside out, representing different cultures really gives an interesting perspective on life. So, that's probably the most important appreciation. I appreciate all my students who are really keep up with my classes.
Appreciation's next. This is what you're grateful for.
I am grateful for, yeah, I'm grateful for my partner, for my family, and for the second chance in my life to understand and represent different culture. That's basically it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Here's some applause. Rinka,
Okay. So in terms of what I'm grateful for, so I'm grateful for for being able to live in a place that has peace and stability. Having family around, so I'm grateful for having a stable marriage. I'm really grateful for my children. My husband and I have 3 children who are successful, and I mean, I'm grateful that they are happy and successful, each one in their own way for themselves, not for me. For the fact that my parents are still around, they're reasonably healthy, and I have a sister. She and her family are also doing well. So those are just the basic things. I'm also very grateful that I'm able, even though I came here, and similar to Larissa, this is my second, it does feel like a second life. But I'm grateful that I have friends with whom I share personal values, so we can have really good understandings and that trusting relationship. Of the little things in life, I'm grateful for being able to travel and to afford entertainment that I like. So that's it from me. Thank you.
nice. Nico, are you there?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. that's-
Yeah, am I the last one? Nat, you done? And Matt? Are they done?
I haven't
Um,
done yet, but go ahead, Nico.
yeah.
Okay, you know, I always love to start with a joke as an introduction. So I'm very, very grateful for my next wife. Okay, so right. If someone asked me, if someone asked me what's happening, I said, well, she's very close now. I can feel it, you know. So, but anyway, I have a fantastic, exceptional relationship with my 2 daughters. Um, it is really something out of this world, and I get a lot of feedback from people observing this, and so that is really something special. I've got exceptional good health. I don't use any kind of medication whatsoever. I haven't been sick for years, etc. And a meaningful life. If you know, whenever I share with you the work that I'm doing in South Africa, it's hard realities, a lot of ignorance around me, but the most meaningful life that I could have dreamed about. And the launch of the book, obviously, it is now like a week or 2. Is it away? You know, it's good stuff. It's nice stuff. To do this from a point of not guilt. I'm not like feeling guilty every day. I feel blessed to share this with the people in the bigger context of South Africa. And then I've got global friends. Currently, at this very moment, they can probably hear me because they're inside, outside, but I've got friends from Hungary, from Croatia in my house at the moment, you know, and it's just like a house on fire. It's fantastic. The global community, including you guys and the Saturday group. Thank you.
Okay. Matt. Good.
Darinka did it first. She gave me the idea. I thought, oh, there's emojis in here for class. Even
I
more.
always forget about that. Great work.
I stole her idea. I can go next since my mic's off. I had put in mind that I'd sent, I know to the group that it's wired into my brain. I have no control over it, but I have a craving for new experiences and new people, and I think it has saved me from what would have probably been a very boring life. I mean, I grew up in a very, Midwest blue collar family who I love all of them, but yeah, I would have not been happy in that mode. And I think, I was born in 1960. There was no such thing as ADHD as far as I knew back then. But I realized when I had children later, and one of my sons had exactly my personality, and he was off the charts on everything they said was ADHD that I've had my whole life. And I think it caused me a lot of grief going through school and in some of my early jobs, because I always wanted to do things differently, and I focused on what I thought was interesting instead of what I was told to focus on. But it also caused me to put a lot of discipline into my life and processes that helped me focus when I wanted to and felt it was important, but also that wider band. And some of the folks have already talked about how important it is to put yourself in other people's shoes, and I think that's helped me do that, because I crave that, learning about other people and how they see things. Nico talked about that. Darinka talked about it, the soup kitchen experiences. And to me, that's probably, if I drill down to the core, that's what I'm most grateful of. I had nothing to do with it. It's whatever DNA and connections were made in the womb. That's what I got baked into me. And but I think it's made all the difference for me personally. So that's my feedback.
Okay, did I get everybody? Okay,
Mm.
next we're going to do the appreciation. And I think it can be useful to appreciate something that people appreciate about themselves. And I got this, believe it or not, from divorce. I decided to divorce my wife, and she said, I don't know why you want to divorce me, because I love you. And I said, I want to divorce you because I don't feel loved. So I went to a psychotherapist and said, can you explain this? And she said, yeah. What is it that she appreciates about you? I said, well, she appreciates the fact that I make good income. She appreciates the fact I'm reliably there for the children and her. I'm a responsible husband and things like that. And she said, what do you appreciate about yourself? And I said, well, my out-of-the-box thinking, my adventurous nature, my willing to take risks and do unusual things. She says, what did you think about that? Says she hates it. There you go. So at the time I couldn't name it, but she's orange and I'm blue. And that was a big piece of the disconnect. A bigger piece was we had no shared interest. We'll talk about that later too. Anyway, so for the greens, they like to be appreciated for caring and deep values. For the yellows, for their likability. For the blues, it's our curiosity, intellectual capabilities. And for the oranges, it's disciplined and organized. So we're going to do the same kind of exercise. Stand looking at people as much as we can on Zoom and look them in the eye and say, I appreciate you for. And the process completes when they look you in the eye and say, thank you. So Larissa, I'm going to appreciate you for something that I think is so outstanding. It's a very personal thing to you. I hope I can share it. But you've done something, what I appreciate about you is not the things you normally talk about. Something you shared with me a long time ago that is so amazing that I'm in awe of what you've done here. Larissa had a child in the family that nobody wanted. She adopted it at a very young age and raised it as her own. That's a level of personal sacrifice and commitment that I could never attain that level. So Larissa, I appreciate you for being you and your gifts, but especially that act just looms large in my mind. So
Thank you, Charlie. Means a lot to me. It will almost bring tears to my eyes, but I strongly believe anyone in my shoes will do the same. So
don't think so, Larissa. It's uniquely, it's a gift. I'm in awe. Thank you.
thank you.
So I'm going to ask each of you to appreciate somebody. By the way, so if you can also appreciate someone who's not here. So I would demo that. I appreciate my wife Junko. She's an essential part of my being for the last 22 years. She's kind, she's thoughtful, she's giving, and we totally love each other. And I'll tell her when I see her. So that's the way you do that. So I'm gonna ask each of you to do the appreciation exercise and appreciate one of the people in the group if you can. So who wants to start?
I can start. Everybody's kind of new to me, so this is
Yep.
this is great. I mean, I just know from exposure to this group, but I'm fascinated by everyone. So it's in a way it's very easy. So I'll pick on Darinka because and appreciate you, Darinka, for what you just shared today. That I've always been so impressed by people who are able to make or have the courage, I guess. And I don't know all your background and where you came from and how you made the transition to and where you ended up in Toronto, but I've always appreciated the courage it takes without knowing it myself to let go of ties and make a move like that. I mean, my descendants did it only a generation or two before me. All my grandparents came from another country, so I appreciate your courage to do that. And I'll piggyback just real quickly on that, Charlie. Someone I do know, my mother passed away a year ago, and I was never a role model person. I've never, all role models seem to have clay feet to me. You know, the more you dig, you find out, so I've always but she was the only one. And I think the reason was she had a bottomless amount of empathy and genuine kindness to everybody. And to the point where, I grew up with three sisters and we would have in my case, girlfriends and ex-boyfriends in my sister's cases that would hang around for years after they stopped dating us because they loved talking to my mother so much. We would listen to their stories and give them life advice, and they would just keep coming back, and we'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, one of my sisters got three boyfriends ago. He's sitting in the living room. What's going? Well, he stopped by. He wanted to chat with me." So that's my appreciation. And Darinka, thank you for letting me appreciate you.
Well, Matt, let me suggest a little exercise to you. Why don't you write a short letter to your mother, then write the letter back?
That's a great idea. Thank you, Charlie. I may do that. I'm still I'm still going through that
It's
process.
powerful stuff to do that.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
I can go.
Okay.
In some ways, I think a very similar response to Matt. I think this is a pretty amazing and powerful group. So certainly want to appreciate everyone broadly, but to kind of force the exercise and meet it where it's trying to be. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, Charlie. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. I don't know why, but probably the tired is part of this, but I do want to appreciate you, Charlie. You've been a big part of my life, whether you've known it or not, since I first met you at school. So thank you for that. I don't know what else to put.
Well, thank you very much.
But I'd also like to thank Nico. The conversation we had last week was really eye-opening for me. Having a partner who is agreeing, I don't always understand her, but hearing you share your story helped me out a lot, and I appreciate that.
By the way, we normally have the tissue box in play during this exercise.
Mine's right behind me here, so thank you.
Yes, I can quickly go next if you are done that. All right, thank you. Being so emotional, it really touched my really touching, very touching. Yes, thank you. Thank you for not hiding your emotions. It really helps a lot. So I want to appreciate you, Charlie, for I checked it was we first met 12 or 13 years ago. It's amazing. I don't know, time is really flying. So I appreciate that you without hesitation made me a second chair in your in-person training. You invited me to the Goddard Flight Center, and I had an amazing experience assisting Charlie during an amazing training for NASA leadership. So that was really a unique experience. I experienced it twice, so I had the privilege to do it twice with Charlie. So Charlie, I appreciate you trusting in me. I appreciate you asking me to assist you. So that was truly a unique experience. And to this day, I should be as more emotional as Nat because honestly, it really touched me very deeply how you really I don't know, it was just an amazing gesture to invite me to really assist you. So thank you for that. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if I have a couple more
Yes,
minutes, maybe
Yeah,
less
sure.
less,
Mhm.
less than a minute. Sorry, Nico. I just want to say how much I appreciate Nat and Tanya. It was really amazing when I asked you and Tanya for help off outside of our meetings, and you immediately jumped right in and assisted me and really helped me, and I'm really grateful for that. And you also didn't hold back sharing your cultural experiences and cultural background. Really meant to me much more than you can possibly than words can say, so to speak. So I appreciate both of you on that, and Tanya. Please pass my appreciation to Tanya as well.
I will. You're very welcome.
Okay, can I go? I
Sure.
think probably I'm the last one, yeah. I think I've expressed my appreciation for the group, and then obviously Charlie for and I've said this is not the first time. The value, the meaning to be connected to you. I'm looking at 6 pictures, but we know the Saturday group as well, Frank and the others. I mean, this is really, really a lifesaver. It is like to be connected to the American culture. You know, we all have, there's always criticism, but this, it is so meaningful to me. It's almost like a, yeah, say like a life jacket or something like that. To be connected at this level, you know, the level in which Larissa became involved with my people, not just now with NASA Globe, also previously. But yeah, if I look at Darinka and Larissa, you know, the to make those cultural choices, whether it's by force or you don't have a choice, it doesn't matter. It's really, really, it's something to appreciate for people to cross those bridges between cultures. And this is, I'm very much aware of it because I'm constantly in that space deliberately, and I enjoy it. So but I can also really appreciate, you know, what you did in your life in terms of that. Um, I can honestly say, you know, if I knock at Matt's door someday, we will spend basically the whole evening. We will the whole night. You know, I'm not sure if we will start drinking, but we will have a wine or something. But there will be a lot of talking, interaction. It's almost, it's like Frank and it's like Lorne, you know, on the Saturday group. You know, you connected. It's at a deeper level. I can say that blindfoldedly. There's because of life, because of experiences, there's a depth. What I experienced with Nat and Tanya, I mean, the most important thing is the non-verbal communication between them. You know, well, this is part of my background. That was what my business and consultancy was all about, you know. So from the world of emotional intelligence, the fact that I've shared with you the percentage, 90% plus in terms of non-verbal communication, she's just a compliment to you. Yeah, it will be great if you take this message, both of you. It's like two strong individuals that come together, and you know, and support each other. It's not dependency. It is that thing. It's not dependency. It's not independency. It is like interdependency. You know, that I can tell you now, my next wife, that's how it's going to be. That interdependency. It's gonna be like Nat and Tanya, if I can put it that way.
Thank you, Nico.
I last word, I mean, I've spoke about Janko, I think it was last week, but I'm very serious about it. How the impression that conversation made on me, how exceptional this relationship is, what is possible. There was even stuff that I thought afterwards, and I thought, gee whiz, I should have mentioned this, you know, things that I've noticed in their relationship. So I can really carry on in that regard. But for Charlie, I mean, for a South African to contact him out of the blue, and he invited me to JPL, you know, it was like unthinkable from our background in Africa. And my roommate Dragos and Sharpie and Shanghu Park in South Korea, we are still very close connected. We communicate, you know, on Facebook and messages and birthdays and stuff. Meaningful people. I can't. Yeah, I will never be able to express my gratefulness to the opportunity. I mean, here we are. It's 9 years later. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie, for bringing us all together. It's
Okay.
really an amazing thing, and so it's a gift. That's what it is.
Agreed.
For sure it is, yeah.
Are we done?
I think, Charlie, I'll just keep it to really 30 seconds. So, first appreciating you, Charlie, and the group, but I just also wanted to say a few words about Larissa. So I wanted to tell you how I appreciate how you express your thoughts really succinctly, but using very powerful words and phrases. And I actually have never met anyone who works on science diplomacy. I didn't even know that there is such a thing. But then I have to say, after listening to you, I think that the humanity is happy that you are there.
Thank you, Darinka. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take a breath, everybody. See you next week.
See you
Okay.
next week.
See you next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi,
Be
everybody.
well. Bye-bye.
Yeah.